everyone, welcome to Katharine's Q&A, episode 31. This is a series where you can ask an author pretty much anything. Today we're actually going to be talking about Amazon categories and what that, how they can benefit you as a reader and as an author. Now, if you're a reader, I'll just start off with that because that's probably the easier way to approach it. If you've never looked at Amazon categories before, Amazon has, I don't know how many, but there are very specific subgenres in literature of all sorts. And as a reader, if you know you're interested in a certain type of book, you can search other books in the similar category or theme that, books you like. Ancient epic poems with mythology background, whatever you want, there's a category on Amazon for that. And at any time, you can look and find out the top 100 books that are in each of those categories. And they change dramatically, by the hour, essentially, just because someone could release a book and it changes the whole number system for everybody. But it is really cool because you can keep up, with all the trends, with what's popular currently, with the steady, can't even think of the right word right now, but you can keep up with what's happening in the publishing world and, with the new trends and what is being published recently versus what's been around and are the tried and true books. And so categories can be a great way to search, especially for the Christmas season, since that's around the bend. If you're looking for someone who may be interested in historical fiction, there's a category for that. There's probably a bunch of subcategories as well that you can search. So that's neat for a consumer. And at any time, if you have a book that you really, really like and want to see, potentially find another book that's similar, well, on an Amazon products page, so the book page, and this is good to know if you're an author as well, if you scroll down, there is a product details section for every book. And some of the information that you'll see there, you'll see the best sellers rank, and that is the rank of sales and the popularity rank, so to speak, of that book compared to all other books within that same format. So you can look at the ebook version and see where your book aligns, or you can look at the print version, paperback, hardback, etc., so on, and see where they align compared to all the other books in that particular format, if that makes sense. Underneath that, you'll also see 3 categories, and those are the 3 top categories that book falls in, and see their rank status on there. As an author, you want to see your book in the top 20s for hopefully all 3 that they show, if not all the categories that your book's allotted in. I'll get to more of that in a moment. But you want to be in the top 20 because people do get bored and will not scroll down that far. So staying in the top 20 is a good way to ensure that you have the highest probability to be seen, and then if people are interested in your book, especially because at this point they're looking at the cover and title, they like your cover, click it, go and read more, and potentially will buy your book. So you do want to keep kind of as high as possible in those subcategories for all your platforms. Now, switching over to the author side of things and going back to the categories. When you're putting out a book, you are on Amazon, you get to select 2 categories to automatically allot your book in. Now, here's the catch in a couple ways. Technically, your book can be in up to, I think, 10 categories. You can only pick 2. Not only that, the selection you get right off the bat is only a fraction of what there is out there. It's probably the most generic categories that you can select from. So unfortunately, you have to wait until the book has gone live before you can adjust your categories. But it's a tricky thing because if you don't realize it, Amazon's algorithm based on the keywords, based on the categories you selected, the blurb, they're going to be pulling a lot of information and trying to figure out for you the categories you should be in. That doesn't always work. So you, as an author, are responsible to checking those facts, seeing what categories you have been allotted, and figuring out if that's good for you or if there are better ones out there that you need to switch into. So how do you go about that? For me, there are probably other ways to do it, but how I go through it, there is a website called booklink.com, book spelled B-K, and then link, Link.com. I'll put that information in the information below, so if anybody wants to see it, they can check it out themselves. But at any point, you can go to that site, plug in either your ASIN number, so that's what Amazon uses for ebooks, or your ISBN 10 number for print books, and see what categories those formats have been allotted into. Now, I think overall you can be put into 10 categories. So for me, that's split between print and ebook, respectively. So I kind of have to check both my ASIN and my ISBN 10 regularly, just to kind of make sure all my books that when I put them out there are in categories that do relate to them. If ever I see that something's not right or not exactly the category I want to personally put it in for whatever reason, I have to go and manually request a change. Now, how do you know what categories are out there? Unfortunately, I haven't found a good listing of all the Amazon categories, and Amazon will adjust and change categories relatively regularly. So you may have done all this research at one point, but if you look back in another year or so, everything may have changed. So you do have to kind of periodically, I would say probably twice a year would be a good thing to aim, check the categories, do some research, and figure out if anything has adjusted in your favor or has altered it negatively. Now, again, going back to finding categories, you go on Amazon, look up a book that you think your book is similar to, or even look up your book. See the categories, the 3 top ones that are listed, the 3 that are visible, click them, and when you're in that system, you can start backpedaling, because you'll start seeing it'll go, I think, the general ebooks, Kindle bookstore, and it goes down. It's like, okay, young adult and young adult fantasy and young adult fantasy in the mythology. You'll see there are a bunch of different things on the sidebar of subcategories and subcategories and subcategories under that if you play around, you can probably figure out a good number of categories that are out there, and then based on what you know of your book, you could be like, oh, I would rather it be in this category about monsters than the category about mythology. It's up to you, but you know your book, you can figure that out a little bit. Other ways you can do it, you can have resources that help you based on some information you plug in. They'll be giving you some information about, have you thought about these categories? One of which is KDP Rocket, and that platform is also helpful because they also have great resources on keywords, which that's a topic for another day. But KDP Rocket is a great resource to do some research about what keywords are out there, who's currently in the top of those keywords, how many sales. They have a lot of information that are associated with some of these topics. And you can plug in your book and see where it aligns. You could give some information saying, hey, I think it is young adult or fantasy, and see what categories they suggest for you that way. But it's a good resource to do. And again, as an author, it is up to you to take that step, figure out what categories you've been auto-assigned, decide if those are correct, do your research to see if there's any better categories out there, and then if you do need to make a switch, you go on your KDP platform, your author platform, and you will need to either call or email Amazon Direct. I usually email because I like to make sure I have that whole link from the biggest category all the way down to the sub one that's all listed on Amazon, and say, hey, these are the categories that I'm in. I want to be removed from this one and added into this one. And again, you want to be very specific on how you write that long category, and you'll have to include, again, following the format of Amazon, which KDP Rocket will show you how it's written, as well as just playing around on Amazon. You will start seeing all the sub subcategories, and you have to make sure you list it all out so they don't accidentally make a mistake and put you in the wrong one. But it really is relatively painless. I have responses and change well within the week, but you do have to be very clear which ones you're taking off, which ones you're keeping on, and I think the maximum, again, is 10 categories. But check, because you might not even have been slotted in all 10, and you want those chants because each category just helps you become that much more searchable for the right readership. And as a reader, kind of on the flip side, each of those categories, if you kind of know what you're interested in, you can regularly check and see if there's any new releases that have broken into the top 100 that might be of interest to you. But categories are very important, both ways, reader or writer, and it is always good to know what is out there for you. Okay, so I guess that is all I have today before I'm rambling on. I think I already did. And if you have any questions about this or any other topic, please message me below in the comments or through my social media. And until next time, skål.